So for those who I didn't meet yesterday or didn't introduce myself to in the bar last night until the early hours, I am Carla Jakeman. I'm the Innovation Lead for Connected Transport at Innovate UK, and it is my absolute pleasure to be hosting this panel. But I also wanted to take the opportunity to very quickly tell you about some of the things that Innovate UK are doing to try and pull some of this together that you've heard about already. So Innovate UK, oh, it's gone very quiet. Innovate UK, we are the innovation agency, and we know, as you've just heard, all of that technology has to be driven, that innovation is critical for that lifeblood, if you like, of that technology. And we do that by funding and connecting. Wave at me if you've been funded by Innovate UK. Oh, there's loads of you. Yes. That's great. We want to, as much as possible, we want to inspire you so that events like this, you can think, that's such a great idea. And I can develop my idea, and I can meet this person, and that person's got the part of the jigsaw that I'm missing. We want to inspire you by helping you see what the opportunities are and help shape them. And we need your help in helping them, help to shape them. So we want to involve you as much as possible, which we do through events like this. And as much as possible, we want those conversations to continue, like Steve said. In 6 weeks' time, we are going to be picking your brains to say, what did you do? You took all those business cards, you linked in, you wrote all those names down. What did you do after the event? Don't just stick them in a drawer. Please make use of them. Have meetings. It's so easy today, you know, on webinar, quick Teams call. It's fantastic. Okay, wave at me. I told you there'd be audience participation. Wave at me if you are local authority. Wave at me. Oh, there's loads more of you today. Wave at me if you're industry. Good. Wave at me if you are academia. Just the one. There were a few more yesterday. Okay. Wave at me if you are a catapult. There you go. So what we can see here is that we have a whole variety of different groups all in one room. And it's great because we're not saying local authority sit there, industry sit there, academia sit there, all one of you. So you can see that, you know, we are wanting you to mingle as much as possible. Now, I'm not going to go through this, and I'm not going to go through a lot of the slides because they are wordy. You will get them as a deck later on, so you don't need to take pictures or anything like that. But everything we're doing is driven by our Transport Vision 2050, which is a pathway to what we think will be happening in various sectors of transport by 2050. So do have a look at that document. And if you think it's wrong or we're missing bits, tell us, because it's a dynamic document that we want to keep updating. So please do tell us if you think, well, that's not quite right. Do tell us. We want that feedback. Got too many screens going on here. So I'm just going to whiz through some of the stuff we're doing. I think Chris is probably outside chatting to people, so it's a shame he's not seen this bit. Active travel obviously became very big during the pandemic, although we've been working on it for a very long time. And my colleagues, Glenn Lyons and Scott Kane, we wrote a paper called Combo Travel, which was very much about enabling everybody to do active travel, regardless of their size or shape, or their economic situation, or their geographical situation. So we really wanted to encourage that conversation. And we've now taken that a step further. There is a QR code there. Put your hand up if you do not know a single female. Ah, you lucky bunch. That's great, because if you're not female, you will know one. Please share this link with them, because we want this survey. It's going to be a very rich source of what is impacting women in transport when it comes to the safety aspects. We want to really understand what those barriers are, and already we're seeing some interesting results, actually. Anthony mentioned micromobility. We are working with the Catapult, and we've developed something called Forum, which is about developing that community. I know some of you are involved in Forum in the room. It's an opportunity again to get that community, that conversation going with regards to micromobility and how it impacts different groups. not just groups of society, but different local authorities. They're all tackling it very differently. What can we learn from each other? And what can we learn from the technologies that are here now? And what's coming around the corner, more importantly? What's next when it comes to micromobility? So we're doing a lot of work on that. And of course, there's a new vehicle category going to be coming from that. Rail. Who's involved in any of our rail programs? A couple of people, brilliant. So we work very closely with the DFT on rail, so we help them spend their rail investment money. There are 3 competitions that are open at the moment, so if you are interested in any of these, please do click the links, but they are closing soon, so you need to get a chug on to stay on track for the rail competitions. See what I did there? Sorry, I'll stop with the bad jokes now. Right, net zero value chain. If you're interested in doing some work with Canada when it comes to net zero, they're, again, closing very, very soon. There are some opportunities there. If you're interested in this, let me know, and I will connect you with Francesca, who's looking after this program. Now, future of freight. I mentioned this a little bit yesterday. There's stuff in here that I can't actually tell you yet, but the DFT's Future of Freight program and their document will be out in the spring. Don't you love it when DFT give you a season, not a month? Come on, Anthony. But it is coming out, and then you will see that there is a whole program of work. There's a lot of work gone into it so far, and it will make that particular sector a lot clearer as to the directions and different pillars that it's going to take. So we will be, we will be reaching out to different groups at different times to try and get that information. It's very important with the Future of Freight program, I think, that we don't just talk to the decision makers, we talk to the operators as well. Every kind of operator, whether it's an HGV driver or a cargo bike. You know, we've got to talk to as many people as possible. So keep your eye open for that. Okay, autonomous vehicles. Now, this started back in 2015. It was actually the first 3 projects. Was anyone involved in any of the first 3 projects? I think TRL well, yeah. That was my portfolio when I very first started at Innovate UK, and it's grown and grown and grown. We've got about 90 projects now, I think. Doing a lot of work with CCAV, the Testbed UK Fund, ICF, the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, just another acronym. And you can see from all the work that's going on that there is a lot more to do, and there are a lot more that we are doing. So the team have engaged with a lot of industry people, a lot of different sectors, and what I can tell you, hot off the press, is that there will be a significant new fund coming out. I can't tell you the amount, because then I'd have to kill you, and I quite like my job. But if you are interested in that, again, follow me on Twitter or follow Innovate UK on Twitter and social media, and you will find out soon, hopefully. We're just waiting for ministerial announcement, and you can find out what that significant amount is. But it's a good one. Zero emission road freight, ZERFT. Some of you have heard about ZERFT. So this is a £200 million programme, typically around long haul HGVs, because they are the most difficult sector really to decarbonise. So is anyone involved in any of the ZERFT activities? Good, excellent. There's a lot of activity over there. We like that. So if you're interested in finding out more about ZERFT and what is next, what's coming next from that £200 million spend, then do contact Alistair. His details are on the slide. Alistair will be able to give you more details on that. Nearly there. Maritime. Kind of went out of fashion, maritime, and then came back again with a vengeance. So there are, again, significant pounds in this one, £229 million over 2 activities at the moment. So we've got the one competition and also the UK shore activity. What shape that looks like at the moment is not something I'm privy to say. There is more to come out. I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but it's just the way it is, unfortunately, waiting for ministerial announcements. But we hope that you will get involved in that. Does anyone do marine? Yeah, a few of you. Is there anything TRL don't do? Brilliant, okay. And EVs, we've talked a lot about EVs already. I'm not going to go through this. You know that Innovate UK are doing loads of stuff when it comes to EVs. We have a whole team working on it and very much driven by the strategy, the 2050 vision. If you want more details on our EV stuff, again, I will connect you with the team, but there's a lot of activity going on, especially around that V2X side of it. And then finally, if that wasn't enough, there are side shoots of stuff we're doing. So we are supporting TRL with their digital roads activity, working with National Highways around some of the competition projects that came out of the competitions we did before. I should have Geospatial Commission on here as well. Highway Sector Council, know John and a few other colleagues here from the Highway Sector Council, Steve. Rural, mentioned a little bit yesterday by the disembodied head of Rob on the video yesterday. So some of you remember some of the rural stuff that's going on. And international, so I know that that is the political hot potato at the moment when it comes to where we stand in Horizon Europe. But the official text on there came from Louise Mothersole, who is our national contact point for Horizon Europe. It is open to the world, so this means participation in Horizon Europe projects facilitates access to global markets. We still want to get involved in those. We have such a great reputation when it comes to Horizon Europe. We've got some great, you've seen it around the room, some great stuff here. Let's take it elsewhere. Let's go overseas and take it. So this is exactly the what's the word? The ship to take it. So we hope that you will definitely use that opportunity. So, there you go. My slide didn't move on. So if you want information on any more of these areas, please do contact me. So it's not just supporting the Transport Technology Forum. There's a whole team and a lot going on at Innovate UK. And I can see from the show of hands that a lot of you are interested in some quite diverse areas. So we'd love to hear more from you, and we'd love you to stay in touch so that you can find out what opportunities are coming next, because they often include money, so which we know you like. So that'd be great. Right, now I'm going to move on to our panelists. So one by one, I'm going to ask them to come up, and then, so please do think of questions as you're going through, because then there will be a Q&A session. So this session really was about, with a little help from my friends, and we couldn't do the activities that we do without help from our friends. It's about that collaboration. It's about that community that I was talking about yesterday and again today. So we are going to hear from Roger Perth, Thomas, you changed last minute, Steve Sopp, Kevin Ledwith, and Jenny from ITS UK. So we're going to hear a little bit about how they are supporting that with a little bit of help from our friends. So I'm going to ask Roger, you are first. Would you like to come up? Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. See if I can get it to work. Oh, it's too quick. Good morning, everybody. So, roadworks, it's quite a controversial topic, I think, to say the least. I think everybody's got a view on it, but I think generally it's not something that we enjoy being stuck in. Just imagine, temporary traffic lights, you're rushing around and you're stuck in that. Or even worse, in the middle of the night, and I've had this myself, although I work in the industry, I come across a closed road at 11 at night, and there's a diversion. It's not something you want to see, although we all understand it's a necessary evil, and I think most people do appreciate that. But I think that goodwill erodes really quickly if there's poor communication on where and when roadworks take place. So people get frustrated at that point, and when they get frustrated, they get stressed, and what we see happens next is potential abuse of road workers, even incursions into roadworks, and stats speak for themselves. There has been thousands of incursions in the last couple of years, and it's actually not decreasing. We also hear from road workers that they complain about abuse, and four out of 5 have seen verbal or even physical abuse. And that obviously that doesn't all link back to poor information, but it is part of the bigger problem. My name is Roger Poet, and I'm the MD of HRS, Highway Resource Solutions. And we've been connecting roadworks to the internet for 10 years. And the reason we started doing that was for road worker safety. So about 10 years ago, just before the business was established, there was a tragic fatality on the A1 where a road worker, he was working in a road closure. So he's expecting to be safer than in a lane closure. And unfortunately, somebody incurred and he didn't have a chance, basically. So we developed warning systems, and some of them, you can see these glowing domes at the front. They've been designed to warn people that something is coming in their way, and they're quite widely used, especially on the high-speed network. So we developed a platform for doing that, and we use the Internet of Things. And when we were doing that, we were not thinking about data. We were not thinking about, can this provide improved journey times or things like that. But now if you look 10 years later, because we are connecting roadworks, we actually know exactly when they are deployed, when they are removed, and we've been making some really interesting gains with that. And in a few slides, I'll show you a video that we've done together with colleagues in the room here to show the art of the possible, what we can do as an industry, not just HRS, with connecting roadworks. Internet of Things, I mentioned it before, that's what we use. It's a huge topic, it's a huge opportunity, and a lot has been said. I'm not an expert in the field, there's a lot of statistics out there, but the two things I wanted to highlight is a lot of the IoT space is still within the home, within the factory, within quite a nice and comfortable environment for IoT devices, where we traditionally operate is in quite a nasty, hard environment on a roadside, etc. So we're a lot more interested in the cellular side. And again, that comes into the EV charging and everything like that. All the assets that are connected. But again, a lot of these are permanently installed. What we do a lot with roadworks is it's quite rapid, fast moving. We have to deploy it sometimes at 8 in the evening and remove it at 5 at night. How do we deal with IoT in that space is quite challenging. Connected vehicle sales are increasing. I think in Europe they are probably nearly getting close to 100% of everything that leaves the factory has some sort of connectivity embedded, and that's really good. But if you look at the vehicle stock, it's going to take a long time for us to be able to rely on that as a primary source of communication to the road user. But most people have a phone, so if you look at that, it's quite a positive story. So we can actually reach a lot of people in their cars already, and that's an opportunity. So the things that we can do to improve roadworks communication, I think, we can do today. We don't have to wait for tomorrow for more things to happen. I think it's actually quite exciting. So the three things that we, in terms of connecting assets on the site, what they can do for us as an industry and for local authorities and national highways, is the third one actually I just mentioned, is that reliable information of where and when roadworks are. But we are also working on reducing carbon of doing temporary traffic management, which is the stuff we need to keep people safe when they're driving through roadworks and people within. We've done a lot of work with the industry to reduce manual inspections, and I'll explain that in a minute. That goes hand in hand with scarce human resources. We all see it. In every walk of life, we have shortages now of skilled people, and that's causing us problems. But if you look at what we deal with, I know this is a high-speed example, roadworks can be quite complicated. They look simple, but they're quite complicated and fast-moving. And I'm going to show you a brief video now, which I'd like to thank Darren, Andy Graham, and George Brown especially for helping to make it possible. And what it shows is how we've connected some of our technology into a vehicle, but also of other providers as well. So hopefully I can get this to work and it to run.
6,500 vehicles have driven into roadworks since 2019, putting road workers and others at risk. Therefore, better information and reinforced signing could be a key benefit. In addition, information about live roadworks is often incomplete, so drivers don't always know when and exactly where work starts and finishes. Also meaning sat-navs can needlessly divert people, which reduces trust, and future automated vehicles will need to be able to drive through roadworks and know of restrictions too. What you're about to see is the world's first end-to-end repeating of conventional roadwork signs direct into the vehicle, where no manual data is needed. The data is untouched by human hand. HRS has developed an innovative solution to detect where and when roadworks and other signs are installed on site, and then to publish this information. It involves mounting the IntelliFrame device onto standard A-frames to make them smart. When IntelliFrame is deployed, it'll display its location and sign face onto a web portal. Simultaneously, this information is broadcast to KL Systems and from there to a vehicle's navigation system. IntelliFrame is built on a tried and tested platform in operation in UK temporary traffic management for more than 5 years. This solution doesn't need someone to enter roadworks into an app at 4 in the morning. It's automatic, real-world technology for today's vehicles and future autonomy. KL Systems has developed a range of in-vehicle apps accessing this information, as well as permanent and temporary VMS. They display, and to reduce distraction speak, roadworks information from the HRS system onto screens in cars and into nav units.
Traffic advisory from test team.
Consistent information from temporary VMS provided by SRL, National Highways Travel Times, and the sign detection developed by HRS is all automated into the vehicle and untouched by human hand. If navigation isn't being used, the data can still be displayed on the vehicle head unit or as a standalone app. It's early days for this and needs more investment to properly deliver the benefits, but this proves that the right information can be delivered in vehicle, safely, efficiently, and cost effectively.
Traffic advisory from test team.
So what the video shows is we're trying to bring together, or we call this digital twin of safety critical assets within a set of roadworks basically, and feed that into the road user. And what you've seen now, that's quite static still. I'll show you some examples where we can do more dynamic warnings to improve road safety. At HRS, because we provide a lot of safety systems and these types of technology that go on the back at science to create a digital twin, we've had to figure out a way of how we can do what it said in the video, which is how do we eliminate the human factor? Because if we have to rely on people, pressing an app or putting stuff in by hand, it's just going to, again, increase workload, and it's going to introduce mistakes, etc. So what we've done, we've done this for quite a few years now, we use common, use technology called geozoning, but we employ it across every work zone that is put out by yourselves, by Highways England. We create a digital overlay, and that digital overlay comes with some intelligence, and when equipment gets deployed in that, it can start warning people, it can start a workflow. So when you deploy, let's say a smart sign, or I'll show some other examples as well, it will immediately inform you first cone down, those sorts of things, or when they are removed. And that has a massive potential for automation. We've done some small projects with National Highways on it to show them they can use this in the control room, and they have full visibility of their whole network, which they've never had before because it all relies on people ringing in. And ringing in doesn't necessarily tell you where they are or when they actually ring in, because they are doing a dangerous job out there. So just to bring this to life a bit more, there's two examples here. One is, that's a taper strike. They happen a lot. We reckon 40 to 50 a day. Doesn't sound like a lot, but each of these strikes is a potential risk to oncoming road users. They tend to happen at night. And you can see that motorbike there. If that's dark and it's poorly lit and it's raining, it's quite easy for them to hit one of these pieces of debris, and the results could be very significant. What we've done with the industry, we've got the incursion warning systems, and they also form part of the taper. So these lamps you see, they've got smart technology in them. If they get struck, they'll tell you, and they'll also tell you when they are deployed. And that gives three benefits to industry. One is the safety angle, we can respond quickly. Secondly, the industry, especially on the high-speed network, but also in local authority sort of jobs as well, you have to inspect the traffic management really to keep it safe, because it's there for safety function. And that's normally done every 2 to 4 hours. Checking something in a cyclic manner is very inefficient, because I'm driving around, I'm burning fuel, and I'm bound to miss it because something happens 5 minutes after I pass by. So this takes us from cyclic to event-based maintenance. And the carbon savings can be up to 80% for the supply chain, and hence it should reduce the cost of doing roadworks, which we're quite excited about. On the right-hand side, you see one of the warning systems in action. It sits with the workforce, and it's literally connected to the different elements of the road closure. there's also an impact protection vehicle in the picture as well. These vehicles are there to protect people when they're working behind it or it's installed, but they get struck a lot more than you'd think. There's loads of them every year that still get struck, although they're lit up like a Christmas tree. And that just shows you that we have a problem where, dynamic warnings to people upcoming is something that we really need to start looking at. Now, most of the industry, and I'm not talking just about the people that we work with, almost everybody has a GPS tracker in these vehicles, but as an industry, we could feed that information potentially directly into vehicles, warning them there is a crash cushion in the road doing 10 miles an hour. If we could prevent one incident like that, it's going to be a massive benefit to the people involved, but also the economy and the delays that we get from that. It was mentioned in the video as well, we designed this product called IntelliFrame. There's a few examples at the front here. The first one is actually designed for local authorities and utilities specifically. So it lives in that sort of setting, but it can also use as a smart permit board. And we've had really good reception on that. So the idea here is, if you are doing a job and you have to display a permit, which is often handwritten, you have to go to site to put it up, it needs to be visible. If you do hundreds of jobs a day, you're worried about hundreds of jobs overrunning. If you deploy this simple technology, it will automate the whole process. We link it to One.Network or indirectly Street Manager. So when it's deployed by somebody, it automatically puts the correct number on, and it will then start to warn you, you're here, you're overrunning, etc. So you can then focus on those 10% of jobs that gives you a bit of a headache, as opposed to worrying about everything. So it makes it smarter, and we've had really good comments on it. It makes it look more professional, and overall we can get more network intelligence that way. Smaller version that was shown in the video has been designed for high-speed works. It's really easy to clip onto a sign. It's got an RFID reader on it, which means if you put a plate on it, roadworks ahead, diversion, it will then basically display that. And you can see it on that banner there. It gives you the whole roadworks, the layout. I've got 3 really short case studies, which I'm more than happy to share, of this being used in action. The permitting, we've done it in many places now. This is one example from Kent where we put it on quite a lot of works, and it gave them the ability to do that targeted intervention. What I forgot to say is it also detects when it falls over as well. So if you have signs that get displaced, you can pick it up and improve compliance. Using it in a different setting, this is a hard shoulder closure near Manchester. If we do this, then we can move away from 4-hour inspections. If we have enough confidence in the technology, we can get it once a day maybe. And again, the cost savings were very significant. This is not just about using technology and adding more costs. This is about reducing costs and at the same time providing better benefits to all the stakeholders. And the final one is diversion routes. I think I was talking to somebody earlier today. Diversion routes they cause a lot of stress with people, and even I do it. If I see one, a lot of us in the industry will know that we design a diversion route to accommodate HGV traffic. So they could be longer than they should be, potentially for us if we drive a car. So a lot of people stop and they have a look on Google Maps and see if they can find a rat run. And if you have this sort of technology in place, or if something goes over, then you are complete. It's almost, if one link in the chain goes, you get people who don't know where they're going, and that's the last thing you want. So that technology can help with that as well. So just to close off, so where to next? I think, as a business, we do a lot of this, and we're passionate about it, but it's a cross-industry objective, because there's a lot of people providing different pieces of the puzzle, but we do believe they're here today. So the first thing we're doing, especially with traffic management providers, is to move them from this traditional routine-based checking, which is labor-intensive and burns a lot of fuel, to event-based. And let's face it, that's done by loads of industries now. It's just taking that same concept into roadworks. Then, the middle bit is what we saw in the video. Can we actually provide these warnings to people about there's a taper strike ahead, or you're coming up to a lane restriction and reduce accidents? And finally, automating workflows so we don't have people making loads of phone calls to get roadworks on and off. Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Is this my car? Is it on? I could just shout. So before Thomas comes up, Thomas, while you're coming up, I do want to take the opportunity again to thank HRS for being our sponsor for the Transport Technology Forum. I especially want to thank them for providing goodie bags which match my jacket. So thank you very much for planning the accessories. Roger. Thomas.
Thank you. I've never used slides like this before. Okay, I think I can work it. So yes, hello everybody. So yes, I'm Tom Webster from Connected Places Catapult, and I'm here to talk to you about the manual for smart streets that we've been working on with Department for Transport. So I really liked earlier, thank you Carla for adding the catapult category, because I never know what box to tick. Throughout my career, I've worked in all those different roles. And so just to say quickly what the Catapult Network is about, there's a network of catapults, we're innovation accelerators, and the Connected Places Catapult, we are the UK's innovation accelerator for people and places. So as part of that, we quite often work with authorities such as Department for Transport, because our role is to kind of try and bring together and get productive relationships between authorities, industry and academia to bring innovation to life, to get it working for society and the economy. And so one of those projects was this Manual for Smart Streets that we worked with Department for Transport on. So the purpose of this Manual for Smart Streets is to help capitalise the use of data and technology for streets and highways. So there's two key audiences this is directed at, authorities, local authorities, who of course play this very key role in managing the streets and have that very influential role, but also industry, to help industry so that they can see what opportunities are present for them and what value they can add, and so that they can make their contribution. There were a few background pieces of work that we were able to step upon. We weren't quite working from ground zero, so there was previously a connected vehicle data research project that DFT had worked on with partners that provided some input, and also has an action plan highlighted in terms of those 6 areas to work on that we were trying to satisfy. And Connected Places Catapult had previously worked on this local authority mobility platform that was providing advice, guidance on how to bring local authorities up to date with new technology driven. It was traffic management focused. So we were trying to expand upon that, bring things together to come up with that overall goal. Why is this important now? So top-level policies are increasingly giving the focus on the value that can be brought from innovation and use of data. And so that puts focus on this area. That then filters down on various initiatives, various priorities, future transport zones, clean air zones. And so it's making it increasingly important to make sure that these opportunities are capitalised on, utilised. And it also, there are increasing opportunities then presented to local authorities, to industry, to get funding and so forth in this area. But what do we actually mean by smart streets? So we define smart streets as when the management, operation and maintenance of streets and highways is enhanced through the use of data and application of technology. But I mean, technology is of course not new to the landscape. We've had traffic management systems for over 60 years. So what do we really mean here? Well, traditionally, if we look at traditional traffic management, yes, there's technology there, but it's quite rigid in some sense in terms of not all those actors are cooperating with each other. Communication is quite one way. because this is kind of traditional technology. So signal infrastructure is having to surveil vehicles through sensors. There's not cooperation between vehicles and the infrastructure. End users are having to pick up cues from the environment around them. They're having to look at traffic signs. They're having to look at signals. So what this kind of leads to is that there's this relatively direct control over road users, and it's relatively infrastructure heavy. You've got to get all your infrastructure out there. You have to have vehicle messaging variable message signs out there in order to get the message across. What we mean by smart traffic management is now there's all of this emergence of everyone's got a mobile phone, that there's wireless communications devices and Internet of Things out there in the environment. So this is now enabling this cooperative two-way communication between the actors. Now your vehicle can tell your traffic signals, I'm a bus, I've got 30 people on board, I'm going to be arriving at a junction in 10 seconds and turning left. You can't get that level of information from a loop in the ground or even computer vision systems looking from the street. So this is providing opportunities to drive more efficiencies and improve quality. But it's also providing this opportunity that now you can have a more strategic level of control over how things operate. You can be getting messages to people on their phones before they even set out on their journey, rather than directing them during that journey. So those two pictures, that's focusing on traffic management. The Manual for Smart Streets isn't focusing purely on traffic management, but that's just trying to get across the message of what we mean by smart. It's the use of this emerging technology and data and all those opportunities and challenges it brings. So what's the challenge? So throughout this process, we did various bits of engagement with various stakeholders. And a challenge that was quite often cited is it's procurement. Procurement's the challenge. But when we kind of delved down into the detail, we started to question, is procurement really the challenge? And the picture we started to bring that we thought kind of made sense is that you've got a system, and your system has a life cycle. And there's lots of different steps in that life cycle. So this is a example life cycle that we put together. We did an initial version, and we've tweaked and refined that with feedback that we got when we talked to various people. And this is not the life cycle of any individual project. Different projects will have different finessing of the stages. But this we've used as an example to structure and make some sense as to the content as we've delivered it. So a system goes through a life cycle, and at each of those steps, there's challenges that may look something a little bit like this. And so what we are trying to do is to give people a bit of a leg up, give people a bit of steer and a bit of guidance to overcome those challenges. And when you're doing smart stuff, it changes the face of those challenges. People are faced with a different perspective on those challenges when they're dealing with emerging technology, when they're dealing with data. And there were some kind of common themes that we were coming up with time and time again. So there's these kind of, we can kind of distill it down to these four factors that we were seeing were quite often what that kind of challenge is of using this smart technology. So standards is one area where things can be challenging. Technology is moving at a pace, and the standards are also moving at a pace. The standards landscape can be complex, and so it can be challenging to work out which standard, various competing standards, which one to apply. And also the role of standards, the role that you would apply to standards can be a bit challenging. So we have to try to provide some advice on that area. Systems engineering. So it's not necessarily so much now when the set of assets that a local authority has is involving lots and lots of pieces of technology that you pick a specification. It's a case of making sure it's built right. But their attention needs to be paid to coming up with the right specifications and ensure that you are building the right thing that integrates in with your existing set of systems. Integration. So that system then has to now be integrated in the operations, talk with all the different pieces it needs to, and also a lot of the value that can be achieved from these smart opportunities is in providing increased integration in itself, allowing data to be provided seamlessly between processes, between departments, to make, to remove bottlenecks and to drive efficiency and to enable better quality. And joined up services. So smart technology, we found, so it's both providing opportunities to deliver more joined up services, but it's also introducing its own technology challenges in the services being joined up. So end users do not want to have a folder full of apps just to pay for their parking. Yes, they like the digital pay by phone parking, but it's a challenge with joined up services and a barrier for them if they have to use several different apps. So we bore that in mind with how we were developing it, and we tried to provide some advice for that. And if you look at this through the lens of just joined up services, it brings quite a few of these things to the fore. So in terms of joined up services, there's again, all of those are brought to the forefront in terms of the systems challenge. So typically that service, it's involving an interlinked system of systems, and that needs to be managed. Digital services, they have wide impacts. So that is, again, a lot of these things come hand in hand. It brings lots of opportunities to have, to deliver great value and to deliver improvements, but it also brings its challenges in terms of things then have to be risk assessed on this wide scale as well. And so in terms of the things that can help to deliver that, common themes that we identified is having long-term strategies can help. So it's about that whole life cycle, and that it starts with vision at the start. Developing an understanding of what the role of standards plays in services can be a very key enabler in managing those, and so forth. So how we actually went about making this content, we are linking to national strategies and policies to help people to know when they're doing their initiatives, what they're supporting, and how that's steering their work. And we provide a set of use cases. So a repository of guidance that each one is focusing on a different area of application to provide advice to people. And the way we developed that is we took a user-centered view. So it's about looking at the service in terms of how it is supporting the user, both in terms of the customer, but also in terms of a manager or operator who has to facilitate the service. And to give you a set of what we're covering, so these are the 11 use cases that we have provided content for, and that they kind of fall into kind of three kind of different categories in terms of what the general role of an authority is for those use cases. So it's not completely rigid, but there are some where it tends to be that the authority is delivering those as a frontline service. others where they tend to be delivering it through third-party contractors, and some where the authority is not directly in the loop quite often, but they can play a key role in helping to facilitate it, and they may have KPIs to help try and roll out things like electric vehicle charging. And so we've developed this content as an online resource. We previously published a beta version, and that's at the link down the bottom there. And we use that from engagement, and we've done this as online content because we want this to be a living document. Technology is always evolving and moving, and we want the content to keep up with that. And we are very keen on this working document being a tool to engage with all the various communities, hopefully a lot of people in this room, to both give you some information, but we also really want to draw upon all the knowledge and experience to help keep uplifting the content and taking it to the next stage. So at the moment, the full set of content, that is, we've finished the drafting at the end of last fiscal year, and it's now been kind of gradually socialized through currently still a limited audience and receiving feedback and doing tweaks on that. But we do hope to for it to go public later in the year. Sure. And so that brings me to the end. So as I said, yeah, we've published the beta version. The full version is being developed and being progressively socialized, and it is intended to be living content that engages the communities and continues to evolve. Thank you.
I'll just introduce Steve Sopner. Some of you will remember Steve as being on our side of the fence at Innovate UK. On Secondment at the moment, it's Crown Commercial. He doesn't get away from us that easily, so never too far away. So I'll pass over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Carla. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I know others have said it, but it's great to be here in person. Yeah, lockdown was a challenge. I came out of lockdown slightly heavier than I went in, a bit greyer. I've now got glasses. I've also got a new job. So in February, I started with Crown Commercial Service. We've got a stand over there. Really excited to be there. I spent the previous 5 years working with Carla, helping get new solutions closer to market. I'm now at CCS looking at how we deploy those solutions, how we make your procurement journeys simpler. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I was speaking to people yesterday, and I was actually quite surprised at how many local authorities didn't really understand what CCS do. So hopefully this will be of value to some of you. I know many of you will have worked with us. Many of you hopefully will have procured products and services through CCS. So I will introduce CCS. I will cover some of the challenges and solutions. We're trying to be part of the solution, trying to help you. Bit of plug for our transport technology framework. We'll cover the landscape. I'll give you a little overview of a couple of case studies that we've been working, where we've been working with other local authorities, and I'll finish on where we're going, future direction. So CCS, we are, I've got to remember I'm CCS now, not Innovate UK. We are we're the largest UK public procurement organisation. We use our size and scale to get discounted rates to help you with your commercial benefits. We offer compliant frameworks that simplify the procurement journey, helping you get those products and services out there, rolled out more quickly. We also use our sort of bulk buying power to help deliver those savings. There's some figures there. So last year, we delivered the public sector more than £2 billion worth of savings compared to current market comparisons, and that's across the board. CCS is split into 4 pillars. We've got buildings, people, technology, and corporate solutions. I currently sit in the technology pillar, and we've got our Transport Technology and Associated Services Framework, which is dedicated to transport technology. But there are also solutions across CCS. So what do we do? I mentioned the framework. TTAS is our main transport-focused framework. We've got over 100 other frameworks across CCS, selling everything from helicopters to medical supplies to staff, providing staff. We also have dynamic procurement systems, DPS systems. They are slightly more flexible than frameworks. They enable suppliers to be onboarded at any point in the process. It does require a little bit more work from the customers, so not for everyone. We've got an aggregation team, so if you as a local authority have similar requirements to your neighbours, speak to our aggregation team. They can help deliver you better savings through aggregation. We've got an assisted procurement team. They usually focus on large and complex procurements, but we're working closely with them and encouraging them to get more involved with local authorities. What we're keen to do is showcase how we can simplify the journey, help deliver some of the solutions around the EV rollout, around clean air zones. So we are looking at how we can get that expert support to support you in your procurement requirements. We have a request for information process. I'll cover that in a bit. That can help you get that market intelligence. It's free. We do e-auctions and reverse auctions. So, get those suppliers, bidding against each other to give you the best possible price for the service that you're looking for, the product that you're looking for. We deliver savings through MOUs, and we're exploring how we can get additional benefits out to our customers through the MOU process. And we have asset financing modules, so we can get you access to finance to help you procure the solutions that you're looking for. I don't know if my colleague Christoph is in the room. Christoph leads on our asset financing, so if you've got any questions, please speak to Christoph. Any questions about what CCS do, we've got a little stand over there. Colleagues John and Matt and Randeep, they'll be happy to talk to you about how CCS can help you. RFI, so speak to us. Even if you're not going to use us for procurement, you can use us to get market intelligence. We've got 76 amazing suppliers on the TTAS framework. You can use the RFI process to understand more about the capability of our suppliers and our supply chain. They'll also give you information on the capability of technology as well. It's a really, really valuable resource, so do think about using that. We don't just sell goods and services. We help provide solutions to the challenges you're facing. We heard from DFT earlier about the challenges for central department, and those challenges roll through to arm's length bodies, they roll through to local authorities. Treasury set DFT a number of metrics in the spending review. They're aligned to climate change and air quality. They're also aligned to improving connectivity and levelling up, and also around user experience, making sure the network's safe, reliable, and inclusive. Those challenges will resonate to all of you. They're areas that we are looking at within CCS. So what are the products, services, and suppliers that are needed to meet those challenges? So under those three challenges, we can help provide you with EV infrastructure. We are supporting local authorities roll out low emission clean air zones. We're doing work to support traffic enforcement. We're providing solutions around real-time passenger information. So again, it's not just goods and services, it's about looking at the solutions. Plug for TTAS. I mentioned our core framework in the transport technology space is Transport Technology and Associated Services Framework. Encourage you just to go online, Google TTAS, Google Transport Technology Associated Services Framework, have a look at the suppliers, speak to the team about the capability of those suppliers. We've done the hard work for you. We've negotiated terms and conditions so you don't have to. We've got a compliant procurement route that will save you time and effort. I mentioned we've got support services so we can assist with your procurement. TTAS includes a catalogue so you can get direct award. You can buy those goods and services if they're low volume, low complexity. Speak to the team about how you can buy them simply and quickly. We've got a focus on EV infrastructure. There were some fascinating discussions in the working groups yesterday. I know there's a debate about what's the role of hydrogen. there were comments about not wanting to replace every petrol and diesel car with an electric car. How do we actually encourage modal shift? But there will be a massive uptake of electric vehicles, and we want to help support that challenge. You're familiar with the background. We've got 40 million vehicles, petrol and diesel vehicles on our roads. They're contributing to greenhouse gases. They produce noxious emissions that are bad for public health. The government has set a target to ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars by 2030 and to have zero emission at the tailpipe by 2035. Public sector has a fleet of around 40,000 vehicles, and the public sector's committed to electrify its fleet by 2027. That is an amazing challenge. OZEV have suggested they need between 500 and 700,000 charge points, public charge points. How are we going to do that? Well, at the moment, we've got two core agreements to help supply charging infrastructure, to supply back-end services and payment systems. We've got TTAS, and there's a particular lot on TTAS that can help support the infrastructure, the charge points and the back-end services. We've got a consultancy lot on TTAS, so if you want advice around making the business case, understanding the requirements, just independent advice, as I said, lot one can provide the consultancy around that. And we've also got that catalogue approach, so if you want to buy charge points themselves to replace outdated charge points or broken charge points, then the catalogue option could be a quick and simple route. We've got a dynamic purchasing system. It's quite well established. VCIS, Vehicle Charging and Infrastructure Solutions, so have a look at that as well. It's a DPS solution. So there are different flexibilities with the DPS versus the framework. So some case studies. Anyone from Bristol, other than myself? Lady in the back, hi.
Can you get a lift home?
Yes. So I'm on track. Recap. We're doing some work with Bristol. We supported them with their rollout of their clean air zone. So worked with Bristol Council, approached CCS, seeking support to meet legal limits on NO2. They used our RFI process, so they got market intelligence on the capability of the suppliers and the technology. They went through a call-off contract, a competitive process that enabled them to ensure that the quotes offered the best possible value for money. And actually it resulted in a local Bristol-based company, SEA Limited, and they were contracted to support some of that rollout of the clean air zone with deployment of their road flow fusion cameras. And there's an image of the camera there on the top right. We're working with our suppliers to understand more about the rule change. Part 6 of the Traffic Management Act enables local authorities to enforce traffic contraventions, traffic offences. There may be many authorities here that are thinking about or have already applied for those powers. It absolutely links in with enhanced networks. Pedestrian and cycle safety, we heard earlier. Preventing those traffic offences or enforcing those traffic offences is going to be, will contribute to a more effective network. We can help, and again, use that RFI process to understand the capability of our suppliers and the technology that can help you to deliver those. I mentioned we've got 76 suppliers on our framework. TTAS is relatively new. It was launched in October last year. But our suppliers regularly work with local authorities. And just some examples here. MVIS, working with Northamptonshire to provide mobile environmental sensors, and that helps them understand the air quality impact of street works. Costain, using video analytics to improve road safety. EarthSense, partnered with Unix Traffic, one of our suppliers, to support to do some modelling on pollution and integrate that pollution model with a congestion model, effectively to reduce emissions. We have KPMG on our framework. So our framework consists of the SMEs, the smalls, the mediums. We've got large UK companies and we've got international companies on there as well. So the full suite of organisations. KPMG are supporting businesses and local authorities with the rollout of 5G. These are examples of our supply chain already working with local authorities. and across CCS, I mentioned we use our size and scale to deliver benefits to you. Some examples here from other frameworks and other areas across CCS to give you a sense of the savings that you can deliver. Southampton City Council saving on its annual tyre bill. 5 West of England councils saving nearly 200,000 on office supplies. 43 police forces used our aggregation process to save nearly $250,000 on IT hardware. So there are significant savings that can be delivered through CCS support. I'll finish on the future. I think Carla's already mentioned the Innovate UK strategy that looks at the sort of longer term future of transport. We are also in CCS looking at what products, services and suppliers we need to have on the next iteration of TTAS, so looking out for 3, 4, 5 years and beyond. We're also engaged with the policy teams within DFT, looking at delivery plans for OZEV, for National Highways, for Network Rail, just to understand where the challenges are and where we can support. So we want to ensure our transport strategy, and this is part of my role, just to make sure that the products and services and the strategies and the frameworks are relevant to you. We want to make sure that they're simple to use, that your customer journey is as the best that it can be. So, yeah, I'll just move on. Future mobility. So this is a plea from me, really. Help us to help you. We want to understand if there are gaps in the current frameworks that we have. Are there suppliers, products and services that you'd like to see that aren't covered? Are there elements about working with CCS that we could improve? Feed that back to us. If you're a local authority, please leave your contact details with our CCS team over there. What we'd like to do is send you a very short survey to get your feedback on how you use CCS. If you don't use CCS, why not? And certainly to inform us about what products and services we need to cover in the future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And I'm going to invite Kevin up. I mentioned earlier on the Horizon Europe stuff and the international opportunities, so it's great now to hear how DIT fit into that, that sector and how you can support.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Still morning. Oh, actually, good afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm speaking just before lunch. I'm sure I'll be as quick as possible. Okay, UK Export Finance. Who are we? What do we do? How can we help? Good question. When I was going around some of the exhibits this morning, I spoke to a couple of the people on the stands, and I was asking them whether they exported, and the answer to me was, we're a software company. Well, of course they can export, but they don't believe it's an export. Just to try and frame a little bit about what I'm going to be talking about, the companies in the room, the industry companies, you may have had funding from Innovate UK, you may be trading in the UK, and one of two things will happen, potentially. You'll get an inquiry from Baku, or you'll sit down one Monday morning and say, how can I grow my business? Both the answers can be exporting, or you will be exporting. Now, UK Export Finance is a very small government department. There's about 500 people who work for us. We have a network of advisors, about 25 people in the UK, and about 20 people spread throughout the embassy network in different parts of the world. We have a mission statement. Our mission statement is that we shouldn't fail. Companies who want to export shouldn't fail through lack of insurance or finance. And what we try to do is work alongside the banks and insurance companies. We don't work in competition with them. And we help the banks and the insurance companies provide funding for companies who want to export. As I'm sure you all know, banks are incredibly prudent, as are insurance companies, and they tend to run in a counter-cyclical manner, i.e. when it's sunny outside and the economy is running well, they'll throw money at companies, and when it gets a little bit cloudy, shall we say. They want the money back. And we're there to fill in those gaps where the bank potentially hasn't got the appetite to do the deal, or an insurance company can't provide the insurance policy that you're looking for. And we work very closely with the Department of International Trade. UKEF are a separate government department, but we sit within the Department of International Trade umbrella. And we have some tried and tested products that we use to support UK exporters. Okay. In the last financial year, we provided £12.3 billion worth of support to exporters. So from an amount point of view, it's quite significant. We help around 550 UK exporters, most of which, nearly 80%, are SMEs. And we support just over 100,000 UK jobs. I mentioned the Department of International Trade. They are a sister organisation to UK Export Finance. They provide support from a marketing perspective. They get involved in trade shows abroad. They get involved in training companies who want to export for the first time. They get involved in providing information on foreign markets and reports. And they do have some funding that's available via an internationalisation fund. It's not lots, it's not hundreds of thousands of pounds, it's a few £1,000s to help companies do things like look at their digital offering, make a website that's specific to a French market or a Chinese market, etc. So just back to UK Export Finance. We have 3 streams of support that we offer to companies. Buyer finance, that's essentially where we support a bank loan to a foreign buyer of UK goods and services. That tends to be for large projects or large bits of capital equipment. I'll come on to a few examples in a moment. But what happens is the UK exporter basically gets paid on delivery, the buyer gets credit. That can be usually for up to 8 years, between 2 and 8 years, but for some green projects we can go up to 15 years. We provide exporter guarantees, and that's working with the UK banks to provide businesses with export working capital facilities. Again, I'll come on to that in a little bit more detail. And finally, I've mentioned insurance. The insurance we get involved in is a subset of the insurance market. It's credit insurance. And that's really an insurance policy you take out to ensure that you get paid. There is a lot of private market companies that are dealing in this, but they quite often aren't interested in getting involved in the riskier markets in the world. Okay, just moving on to buyer finance. I've mentioned most of the things on my slide. I've got too many slides, so I apologise for that. But in effect, buyer finance provides a cheap form of finance. UK government is backing a loan provided by a bank, so the interest rates payable on that loan is reduced. If you're thinking about a project in Turkey, where interest rates are 17, 18%, the fact that the UK government is backing a UK loan and we're using UK interest rates, you can see that there's a benefit for companies utilising our support mechanism. Now, we do have a sort of a minimum amount that's available on this scheme. Now, we're talking about a minimum of £1 million. Most of the projects we get involved in are of hundreds of millions of pounds, but we can look at smaller projects. Typically, it'll be the sale of capital goods and equipment. So just quickly whiz through a few examples of how this has supported transport companies. Kibale Airport, we've supported recently. A monorail project in Cairo, and a road project in Cameroon. All of these projects, we've provided supplier fairs to get UK businesses involved in the supply chain. And again, this is an area where UK Export Finance can support SME businesses to get involved in exporting. We're backing the project. We're providing the finance for the project, and because of that, we insist on a minimum amount of UK content. That UK content is about 20%, but that means that UK businesses are at the forefront of supplying into that contract. The second area of support, as I mentioned, is through the banking system, and there are a number of schemes that we have with the major banks in the UK. Working capital and bond support schemes. Basically, we provide a guarantee for up to 80% of a loan for a specific contract. The bond support scheme works in a very, very similar way. It's for companies that specifically need to issue things like advance payment guarantees, performance bonds and warranty bonds. There's a quick case study here of a company that exports to Bangkok. They won a large contract, but they needed to provide guarantees to the Transit Authority in Bangkok. When a bank issues a guarantee, it usually takes 100% cash cover. We're able to provide the bank with an 80% guarantee, so they don't take all that cash cover for the issuance of the bonds. And it enables contracts to be able to take place. Otherwise, this particular business that have had a large amount of cash taken from their account and placed in an escrow account as cash cover for the issuance of the bonds. Lastly, I've mentioned credit insurance. We provide single risk credit insurance to the areas of the world where the private market is unable or unwilling to provide support. We can provide cover for up to 95% of the contract value. We provide cover for political risk for the buyers going into liquidation or willfully not paying. We provide cover in most markets in the world, not all. I think Libya is off cover at the moment, and Syria, and a few of the African countries. We're getting an awful lot of inquiries for Pakistan and Bangladesh at the moment, and we do a lot of our business covering transactions in the Middle East. Okay, just moving forward slightly. General Exporter Facility is a new product that we launched about 18 months ago. This provides support for all sizes of business through the bank, but it's not contract specific. It basically looks at the exporter, the company, and sees whether it is an exporting company or not. And again, we can provide the bank with a government guarantee to provide funding, and we provide the guarantee for up to 80% of the amount that is being lent for a period of up to 5 years. Okay, and lastly, Export Development Guarantee is a larger version of the General Exporter Facility. It's intended for companies, large companies, and to provide them with working capital to support exporting activity. We're very flexible with this. We're looking to support companies who are setting up business in the UK and will be exporting over the next few years. We're also looking at companies that are developing new technology. Companies like Jaguar Land Rover, Ford, Nissan are using this scheme to support their EV development. And you'll be glad to know that's the end.
Thanks, Kevin. There was a lot of information in those slides. Just a reminder that the slides will be available afterwards. So, and then last but definitely not least, Jenny Martin from ITS UK.
Right. So it's 12:13. I will be done by 12:23. I promise you, absolutely faithfully. Thank you very much. I'm Jenny Martin. I'd like to start by thanking Innovate UK and the DFT and the TTF for inviting me to speak here today. I also really want to thank Darren Capes, who gave me my talk title. I didn't come up with it myself. Access for All, Inclusivity in Engineering, because it gives me the message that this is something that the TTF and the organisations that finance the TTF really care about, as do I, so that's really welcome. So I will then bite the hand that just fed me by saying that this is the template I was given for a slide, and it's very, very bad. Because if you want to make your slides as easily readable as possible to as wide a selection of the population as possible, your background should be light and your font color should be dark. And I put it to you that we're all professionals, well, possibly not me, but most of you, professionals with expertise in your area, and that's the backbone of how you do your work. But you also have lots of auxiliary skills without which you couldn't do your work. You know how to use Microsoft Word and Excel. You can probably drive a car. When you have a professional dinner, like last night, you know which cutlery to use. I also think that we all need some basic skills when it comes to inclusion and inclusivity in the workforce. And that should be part of our professional portfolio. So that was my first point. So ITS UK, who are we? Many of you know because you're members. We had our AGM here yesterday. But we're an independent membership association and our funding comes entirely from member subscriptions. We've been going since 1992. I hope we'll still be going in 2092, though of course I won't be here to see that. We're currently chaired by TRL. Ryan Hood is here somewhere. And there he is, thank you. And our vice chair is Carla from Innovate UK. So thank you, Carla. And our membership includes organisations like the Department for Transport and Transport Scotland, National Highways, but they're members on exactly the same terms as, say, Mott MacDonald or the City of Glasgow or the University of Loughborough. So we're a very sort of even playing field. We organise ourselves into forums because ITS is now a much wider field than it was when I first started. So whether you work with enforcement or you work with traffic management, any speciality we cover with our forums. And in terms of our relationship to government, we like to think that we're a critical friend. So government is part of us, but they don't fund us, which means that we can have quite an open dialogue, give advice, not always with the expectation that our advice will be heard, but we're in a position to give it. We also are quite active internationally, and we're active in standards. EPL 278 is the BSI Committee for Standards. I sit on there for ITS UK, and I try and keep the channel open between the membership and BSI. So the question, of course, is how are we different from the TTF? I get asked that quite often. So you've already heard, I could stand here and go through our documentation and TTF documentation and point out all the differences. That'd be very boring and take too long. But the two main differences are, it's the funding model. We are not government funded. And the second one is that there are ITSs all over the world, ITS France, ITS Indonesia, ITS Australia, ITS Argentina. So we are part of an international network, which is really useful to our members. If you ask me to find you a contact who knows all about highway systems in Colombia, that would just take me one email, which is a lot cheaper than you having to go to Bogota and put yourselves through building your own network. So the topic is diversity and inclusion. So I've just come up with a few figures here. Half of us are female, as has already been pointed out. It's not easy to live in this country and not know a woman. 14% of us in this country currently are people of colour, and 18% are disabled. And if we look forward, I like to think that the women will be the same proportion going forward. Currently, 30% of secondary school children in this country are of minority ethnic origin. You're all clever people. I don't need to spell out to you what that means for what the future workforce is going to be like. Or, this is my point. What the future pool of potential employees is going to look like. What we do with it in terms of workforce is the purpose of my talk. And we're also living longer, so more of us, as we also work longer because we live longer and we can't afford to retire at 45 anymore, more of us are going to be working and also be disabled at the same time. And the situation in the transport workforce right now is that 14% of engineers, so this is, I don't have any figures for transport specifically, this is engineers generally, are female. 20% of transport sector workers are also female. In 2019, 20% of transport apprentices were people of colour. Then I really got into it with Google. Google is a lot of fun. 8% of ASLEF members were people of colour in 2018. And very cheeringly, while 44% of disabled people worked in 2013, by the time we got to 2021, that was 53%. So that's what the workforce looks like and the situation we're in. So there's a mystery cup of coffee down there in the corner. Why that is there, you will find out. But we know from research that a diverse team does deliver better outcomes. And if you don't believe me, please go off and Google it and read the academic studies. Some great studies into the financial crash in 2008 and the premise that if women had dominated banking, it probably wouldn't have happened. Different attitudes to risk, different ways of working. The famous one, nothing about us without us. You all heard that one before. And then a quote from me, a representative transport workforce will deliver a transport system which serves citizens better, said by me today. So, said by you today, probably. Yeah, okay. We've heard all this before. We've been on our internal courses in our organisations. We have policies. We have special days when we go away and talk about these things. Our board is on the case, our human resources department's on the case. Hey, you know, I'm a transport planner or I'm a geographer. It's important, but it's not really about me. So my final message to you, or my main message to you, is that actually, yes, it is. It is a job for all of us. Diversity and inclusion is a topic that cannot be hived off. It's not like payroll. It's not like audited accounts, it's not like IT support. There isn't someone else in your organisation whose job this is. It is the job of all of us, definitely. Many of you are probably already doing it, perhaps even without realising. You may be mentoring, you might be involved in recruitment programmes, you may already be doing it. There are things you can do if you haven't thought of it. You can volunteer for STEM promotion activities. At the end of my slide set, I've got some email addresses. Maybe you're doing stuff via your learned institution. If you're not, you probably should be. You can do the Bring a Buddy thing. I did a nice thing with a nice outcome. I got a lovely invitation to reception at the RAC Foundation in Pall Mall. And I asked the person who invited me, could I bring a young early careers person? And kindly the person said yes. And I brought she's a WSP graduate trainee. And as part of what I was trying to achieve, I introduced her to really senior people. I introduced her to Steve Gooding, who's sitting here right in front of me, to Ian Yarnold from the DFT, to David Davies himself from PACTS. And all those three people were lovely with her. If you look at it objectively, there's nothing in it for them. There were far more better ways they could have used their time than talk to her if they were looking at it from just selfish perspective. But they were lovely with her. She'll remember that. It'll give her a boost in her career. That's in all our gift to do. We can all actually do that. We should also call. When we see something wrong, we should call it. Again, I'm not apologising for being personal. All this stuff is personal, otherwise it doesn't work. So another example, somebody very close to me, he's in his workplace. He's in a room doing something. There's another two people in the room having a very involved discussion, probably about conservation of ancient charters or something like that, because that's the sort of workplace they are. And the people who are having the huddled conversation, one of them is a young white British woman, and the other one is an older Pakistani British guy. Another white English guy bowls into the room, sees the two of them huddled, and says, "Oh, I hope you're not grooming her," to the British Pakistani guy. And there's silence. So the person I know thinks, okay, well, if the two of them are going to be silent, I am not. And he sent the guy home. He said, you are suspended for reasons that should be obvious to you. We will be in touch with you once I've sorted it out. But believe me, this isn't the last you'll have heard of it. There was resistance by the two people who'd actually been sort of victimised by this. They weren't very keen to take this further, but my contact pushed it through, and in my opinion, he was right to do so. He could have said it's nothing to do with me, and the offending person would have carried it on being offended, because it's just banter. I mean, who was hurt? The two people who were hurt weren't actually keen to say they'd been hurt. But he pushed it through, and that's the right thing to do. And in my opinion, that's how we should all be when we hear these things. And we do hear them. I know I do. I hope that each time I do, I stand up. But it can be very difficult. And my last message is at work. The one thing I really, really do fight against is this business of recruiting and promoting on the basis of that you like the person or you enjoy their company. Until we get that out of our promotion and recruitment processes, we will not crack this. The person isn't there for you to have fun with them down the pub. They're not there in order to go to a barbecue at your house and have a good time. They are there to help you deliver the objectives of your organisation. And I know how hard it is. I struggle with it myself. I love to have people around me that I like. But in terms of inclusion and diversity, it is poison. It's absolutely hopeless. Don't think like that. And I think what we need, and this is knowing, I have personal experience of this, actually when you work with people whom you don't particularly like or you don't have much in common with, it stretches you because your opinions are challenged. The things you think you know are challenged. I like to think I'm challenging some of you now. You're thinking, oh God, that woman, what's she talking about? But that's good. You're being stretched. And by a little bit of incredulity coming from you to me, I'm being stretched. This is good stuff. And if we do, going forward, if we do deliver this inclusive and diverse workforce where we are all different, don't necessarily even like each other, but we're working towards the same objectives, our results will be better. So I've got some references here. I've taken an extra 3 minutes. I do have a really good, can I have 1 minute?
Go on, as soon as it's you.
Thank you. I will then end with something that I hope will warm your hearts and I hope will resonate with you, which is I was invited by Transport for London to talk at an event for their young employees, again, particularly young female employees around diversity and inclusion. And I said my piece and I talked about intersectionality, which is sometimes you may be discriminated against on more than one ground. So, take me, maybe because I'm female, and because I'm older. I'm now at the age when we women stop being seen at all outside work, which is actually great because I don't get hassled from men on public transport anymore. That stopped in my late 40s. That's really good. So you younger women, look forward to this. It will happen. But I said that I've come to the conclusion that in this country, the hardest one is class. Everything else is bad, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, all those things, but class does seem to, in this country, to be the hardest one. And after I'd finished my talk and we were mingling, this young girl came up to me. She was clearly female, clearly a practicing Muslim, almost certainly British Pakistani origin, I would say. And she said to me, "Thank you for what you said about class. I really feel that that's been a struggle for me. I feel people don't hear me because of my accent. Thank you for saying that." And it was lovely for me because I'd done something for her. But she'd also done something for me because I felt now that my 2 hours at the Palestra had actually made a difference to somebody. And it's in all our gifts to do that. So I make no apologies for this being personal. This is a personal matter. I hope you will follow up on some of these things. And together, we can carry on going forwards with this. Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny. Lots to think about there, and I'm sure we definitely need to sort our slides out going forward as well. And I'm sure there will be more opportunity to ask questions later on. We're just going to run over slightly. I know you're hungry and it's lunchtime, but we did want to give you an opportunity to ask some questions. There are some mics, I think, somewhere. Yeah, we've got some mics coming up. So we've had a lot of diverse presentations this morning. Each one's quite a different topic, and hopefully you can see that there are ways that all of these as friends, are trying to support the industry in a variety of different ways, whether it is the diversity, whether it is export opportunities. So I'm going to pass over to you guys. Does anybody have any questions? There must be one. I'm going to start then, okay. Chair's privilege, I will start. So I'm going to ask Tom, how can, I've got to stand in front of the mic, how can the manual for smarter streets, how can that be used when it comes to policy in other areas such as active travel?
So, one thing that we've got, what we're trying to do in the Manual for Smart Streets is we've got things like logic maps, so you can see the maps between objectives that you're delivering, and then your objectives you're trying to achieve, and then the benefits they deliver. And then that can work two ways. You can start with a project and the objectives that's delivering, and it helps to verify all the different benefits that it's delivering to help make sure that the business case is covering all the different aspects. Or it can be looked at the other way in terms of if there's a particular benefit need area that you want to deliver, you can then look at it from the other perspective in terms of what sorts of objectives should you be looking at in order to achieve those. So for something like active travel across all the different use cases, can look those up in the logic maps and build up a bit of a picture as to what the kind of general areas and what will help to deliver that.
Okay, so it can be used in a variety of different ways. Excellent, thank you. Any other questions? Steve? Do you want to use that mic?
Thanks. It's a question for Crown Commercial. So one of the things I hear quite often at events, including events like this, but I'm going to mention no names, is that the public sector, be it national highways, be it local authorities, are quite, I'll say, risk averse when it comes to procurement. And there's an assertion, I'll put it no more highly, that it's so much easier to take last year's spec and last year's contract, change the date, reissue that, than it is to rethink it. And that closes off avenues for innovation. Two questions. Is that something that CCS encounters and is doing something about? Is it something CCS itself might be victim to?
Thank you. I'd probably agree with you. I'm fairly new to CCS, so I've had quite a bit of experience with the innovation journey, and I've seen great ideas get close to market and then fall down that valley of death. Particularly with the smalls in the SME, to be on a framework, you have to go through quite an onerous due diligence process, and that's demanded by the public sector. And as you say, there is a low risk appetite there. One of the things that we're doing, and we're talking to primes and tier ones, is about what more can we do in the terms and conditions. And it came back to that point that was mentioned earlier about accepting failure. If you want innovation that's not proven, then think about how you can test and trial and roll that out. There are great examples across CCS where we've included pilots in part of the contracts. So, a public sector organisation takes 3 ideas and pilots those 3 ideas and then looks at the one that's most successful, and then it can offer a commercial contract for that. There's great examples about integration partners. So the tier ones and the primes acting as an integration partner for new technology. The smalls can be on the supply chain. So we've got, I also say, look around the room today. A lot of the firms here, many of them on CCS frameworks, are offering very innovative solutions, market-ready solutions. But I'm aware that there are innovative firms that are coming through Innovate UK that are quite small, startups, emerging companies that have great innovation. I'd encourage them to talk to those primes and those SMEs that are on frameworks to see how they can support through the supply chain rather than necessarily being a prime. There is a bit of a further discussion about how we manage risk, how we encourage the public sector to take on more risk, and whether we can do that through the terms and conditions that we have that allow for perhaps allow for some space for failure so that those primes don't get penalised when something doesn't work.
Thanks, Steve. Any other questions? Paul? Oh, can we wait for a mic? Sorry.
That's what I can talk about. It's a question for Roger, really, about the connected roadworks and just linking that in with active travel. And we have quite a lot of incursion from people using active travel modes into roadworks because there isn't appropriate diversion routes that are suitable for them, or they don't want to use them. And I just wonder if you've got any thoughts about any technology that might be able to use to keep them safer by any kind of warning to stop people using excavators when they've done an incursion into the roadworks, etc.
Yeah, it's a good point. A significant part of what we do is that incursion risk for the people who work on the site. And what we try to do is have technology that's quick to deploy, so it can be quickly put around an excavation to warn people within and without. And I think it's a lot of is said about keeping people safe on site, but like you said, people who incur on site, they put themselves at risk as well. So that we try to do that with easy to use technology, but it's like a big jigsaw. All the pieces of the puzzle have to come together. And what we often find is every site has a unique challenge. If you're dealing with residents, you've got to let them in and out. So there's different ways of dealing with that. So what we're trying to do is give people the tools that they can use to create that safer work zone when they're basically there. But it's definitely a good point. And it's, again, we've got some technology out in the lobby more, which is about providing residents more information when things are happening around them. But I think generally the experience is that the better informed people are, the less likely they are to actually do incur into work sites. But if it does happen, the people who do go in, they can be aggressive, etc. So it's one of these things we want to make sure we keep people safe in the first place.
Thank you.
I hope that answers
One
the
more
question.
Ruth. Mike's behind you.
Thank you very much. My question's for Steve, and I'm from a local authority, and we do an awful lot of innovation work. So we've been working with small companies and a particular company that we're working with, being informed that we've reached our ODU limit. And, this is actually quite difficult when our councillors are starting to see the the real value in the information that we're getting from their technology. And everybody's starting to see that, it's great, we want to roll out more. And I'm wondering, now, are ODU limits now going to change, or how are the ways that actually we can continue to be working with these suppliers where where actually the procurement are putting a barrier in place?
Just a quick clarification: is that within one of your own frameworks, or is that a CCS framework?
I think we started working with them before they were able to when they were at that, really testing out that product phase. So I think they're now onto a CCS, but when we add up all of the money that we spent.
Come and speak to us afterwards. I think this is certainly a technical discussion. My colleagues, Randeep in particular, be more than happy to talk to you about some solutions that we can explore with you. CCS frameworks, I think you saw the TTAS framework. I think the limit there is 2.4 billion spend. There are ways and means in which we can increase that within our own frameworks, but I'm not sure if that's directly relevant to the case you're talking about. Perhaps we could pick it up afterwards. Yeah.
I think there's going to be a bit of a queue over there. Now people realise more about what you're doing. So I'm going to leave it there because I know you're all hungry. A couple of things that I do need to mention. Firstly, on your desks, on your tables, you will see ITS UK review. This is our annual review. There's loads of really good stuff in here. Please do take them, take a copy, give them to one of your more junior members. and introduce them to ITS UK. Whether you're a member or not, please do take these. Paul Hutton has put a massive amount of effort into getting these out, so please do take a copy of these.